Okay, here is video several months later, maybe even almost a year from my first video of this Pentora 200, which I believe is actually 179 cc's. I think I already described that in the last video. I was just going to give an update. I have been riding this quite a bit. I'm sure I have hundreds of miles on it now. And never, not one thing is messed up yet. I mean, knock on wood, nothing. I mean, I don't beat the shit out of it. I don't jump it, but I mean, I whip it around. I get on the throttle. Um, I haven't had one problem yet. As a matter of fact, I mean, the chain hasn't. It's got a really beefy chain, but look at that, how tight that chain. It might even be too tight, but I haven't had any. It hasn't. What that's telling me is it hasn't stretched. It's got hydraulic disc brakes, front and rear, and they're incredible. I'm serious. Stops on a dime. I just bought a 2003 Polaris Trailblazer for my wife, and the brakes are horrible on it. I've bled them, and if it sits for a while, the rear brakes quit working. I don't know. And just some poor design. And I mean, this thing, Pentora, China, it's actually built by the Odes factory, which actually put out some halfway decent machines. But again, it has not failed me, knock on wood, once yet. I have not had one problem with this rig. And this thing is surprising. It's a climber. This little thing. I'm about 5'11", 200 pounds, fully dressed, and I have gone up some hills I never would have thought this would have gone up. And it doesn't even breathe heavy. There's one that's really, really steep, and it's pretty long. It's a pretty long hill, and it does it just fine. It kind of sounds like it's, breathing a little bit heavy, but not really at all. But it's part of it is how it's geared. The thing will do about 35 miles an hour. My buddy bought one. He clocked it at 37. So, 35, which honestly for this little rig is plenty. The suspension's really good on it. For tight trails, this thing whips right along. The suspension's really good on it. It looks cool. They, ripped off the Yamaha look. Little bit of vibration, but not too bad. No more than, I wouldn't think more than a normal quad. What else? It's still tight as a drum. I mean, I just ride it normal, but I go over some rough, rocky terrain, and but it's still tight as a drum. It's not all sloppy. Again, I don't beat the living hell out of it, but I mean, it's zero. And that's another Polaris thing. I've had this over around a year now and ridden the hell out of it, and there is no slop in any of the ball joints. It takes off. What I was saying about the gearing, though, it's geared really well for what I want. Now, if someone was in a more flat area, they could probably switch out the sprocket, because it winds out when you're like really on the gas. It winds out like it could go faster if it were geared different, for sure. But me, I want bottom end grunt. I mean, 35 on this rig for me is plenty. Like I said, I have many machines. I have a 400EX. I got a 800XC Touring for me and my wife. I've got a lot of stuff. I got that Polaris Trailblazer 250. I ride all sorts of different shit, but it's fun for me at 50 years old to just get on a rig that is small like this, a smaller machine, and I can 100% manipulate it. I ride it. It's not, you know, on my 800, I'm just a little guy up. Just, it's going where it's going to go. Power steering and shit. Almost like no matter how hard you lean, that machine's going to go where it goes. This thing, you can lean, manipulate, whip it around. And again, those hydraulic brakes are, Jesus, man, I can be going down an extremely steep hill and just hit both of those front and rear brakes and it'll just stop and just hold you there. Again, for owning this for going on to close to a year, however long it's been, awesome machine. Highly recommend it. I'm going to go ahead. Now, one thing I do know about this is Chinese. I probably said it in the other video. This is head and shoulders above the older Chinese shit, or even that Tao crap that's out there now. Tao is crap compared to this. This is a lot better made machine. If this were a Tao, the plastic would be all faded and the paint would be faded on the frame by now. Taos are garbage. This is a really well-made rig. I'm pretty impressed with it. The only thing, like I said, is parts issues. I haven't needed any parts yet. I've heard that parts can be a little... So a lot of the parts, though, I will say, like, are pretty universal. Like, this thumb throttle, the brakes are all pretty universal. The switches. But, shit like the belt and stuff like tie rod ends and shit like that, I'm going to go ahead and brake pads, although the brake pads are probably pretty universal too. I mean, they've been making these for 20 years now, and a lot of the parts are, they do interchange from company to company. But even like, go look at a Tao, go online, whatever, look at a friggin' Tao, look at the swing arm on a Tao. They're garbage, and they got the really shitty tightening crap, these tensioner. I mean, this is more big brand. This, you loosen the hole in the whole damn bearing carrier turns to tighten it. And it's got, linkage for the suspension. It's just a hell of and fuel injected. I love that. This son of a bitch just starts right up. It hasn't even hiccuped yet. If it gets low on gas, it'll cut out and die, but that's because it's low on gas. Again, and I've owned other Chinese rigs, and I can just tell you from experience, for how I've ridden this one, other Chinese rigs like Red Cat and Tao, and even Jet Moto. Jet Motos were okay back in the day. If I know for a fact, because I did it, how I've ridden this one so far, if this were a Jet Moto or a Tao or the cheaper Chinese one, it would have rattled apart by now. I would have been tightening shit. I haven't touched a bolt. Although I did put this together myself, and I use Loctite on everything. So, again, great rig. Highly recommend it. I paid $2,100 out the door. I got it, and $2,100. I bought it online. Buddy and me purchased two together, so we got a little bit of a better deal. Again, great rig. Highly recommend it, especially for the money.